welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, our guest Bill Monning, member of the California State Senate. And sir, I want to speak with you about the Affordable Care Act. You are the chair of one of the health subcommittees, and so I'd love to get your sense on how the rollout has gone, and I want to focus on California.
Great.
Not healthcare.gov, California, covered California.
Covered California, coveredca.gov.
Exactly.
And that is the California Health Exchange set up under the Affordable Care Act. It's online, it's working, and we have literally thousands of Californians every day going on to that website. You can do a survey without having to commit to anything.
Right.
And you can end up at the end of the session with covered, with health coverage.
What's so interesting to me about the dynamic right now is here we are, California, one of the biggest state in the union. Maybe 25% of all uninsured live in California, yet we don't hear the national press talking about the relative success of covered California. There are glitches, we understand that, but what's your analysis as kind of a student of politics, if I may say?
Well, it's a fair question. I think there's been a lightning rod, if you will, at the national level with so much focus on Obamacare, as it's called usually by detractors, although I think the president has embraced Obamacare as well. So you go from this really effort to shut down our government by those who oppose implementation of Obamacare to now they're taking great satisfaction in the fact that there have been glitches, there's been problems with the national website. Now that's for the states that have opted out of setting up their own exchange, and the default is for the federal government will run its exchange. We have heard, it's important to note, I think, that while people have had some trouble on the online application, they've been phoning a 1-800 number, and I heard testimony on the radio this weekend of a guy that he has health care coverage now 30 minutes into a phone call. So, but it is important to recognize that the states that have set up their own exchanges, in California, as you cite, one of the biggest states with over 8 million people in this state without health insurance, we expect this will reach 3 to 4 million over the course of the next year. From a public health point of view, and this gets lost in the shuffle, the more people that have access to primary care coverage, to immunizations, the healthier it makes our communities, and it results in lowering long-term health care costs.
I want to talk about those that are signing up, because we know that in order for the healthcare exchanges to work, it is pivotal that there be a nice mix of young and healthy versus older and infirm. I don't think we know what that mix is yet, but anecdotally, if you can, do you have a sense of who is signing up for Covered California?
Well, often it's lower income workers, small business owners. Small business owners, it's important to point out, they're not obligated to provide insurance for their employees up to 50. But the leading cause of bankruptcy in the state of California is somebody who's had a health crisis and had to declare bankruptcy because they didn't have coverage or they couldn't afford, even with the coverage they had, to pay the medical bills.
At the same time, part of the Affordable Care Act is the expansion of Medicaid, Medi-Cal in this state. Other states do not accept the expansion. We did in California. Do you have a sense of how that expansion is going? We hear a lot about Cover California, but do we know anecdotally numbers for the expansion?
Yeah, I don't know gross numbers in terms of total that have signed up, but those that may be eligible, maybe half of that 4 million I mentioned, up to as many as 2 million. And that's where county social service agencies are helping with the application. One of the reasons it's important is it raised the allowable income limit for somebody to be eligible for either Medi-Cal coverage, or some families will be eligible for some subsidy from the government.
When we come back, I want to talk about the underground economy. For our viewers on HLN, we thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. Senator, as we continue our conversation, I want to speak with you about the underground economy. You've spoken about it before. I know that Mr. Horton of the BOE, Jerome Horton, is a big proponent of trying to get a handle on the underground economy. What exactly is it?
Okay, first, the underground economy, it's employers largely in the construction trades, not exclusively, who are paying cash under the table, often less than minimum wage, no workers' comp, they're not taking out any payroll taxes. It hurts the worker and it hurts the law-abiding employer. So you give a competitive advantage to a maverick employer, underground economy, and we estimate that can be as much as $60 to $100 billion of economic activity in the state of California, and that it's costing the state as much as $8 billion a year of lost payroll taxes. These are resources that could be going to schools, could be going to healthcare services, could go to highway infrastructure support. So it's a huge problem. And my legislation, and I've partnered with Assemblymember Cacho Asajian,
who represents San Luis Obispo, where we are today.
We've partnered on 2 bills that were signed into law. I've been working on this in a bipartisan manner since I was elected to the Assembly in 2008. We've given enforcement agencies more tools. We've tried to do more public education, and we've tried to stigmatize those maverick employers who have been penalized, some arrested, because some of them do constitute misdemeanor or even felony charges where there's a worker injury, for example.
What about giving those enforcement agencies more agents?
Well, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
The more resources we put into those agencies, the more enforcement activity there'll be, the more we can recover for the state, that in my view would more than pay for the cost of expanding those agencies.
So as part of the 2 bills which you carried with Mr. Asajian, is there money for more agents?
No, but what we have done is we've tried to economize with the agencies that are in different silos of Employment Development Department or Cal OSHA, other agencies that are charged with enforcing, to do more collaboration. We've broken down some of the walls that I want to share information related. If you have an investigation going here for tax fraud, you may have an investigation here for workers' comp fraud. Share the information so we get more bang for our buck.
What about as part of the Board of Equalization? Could they not assign more agents?
Well, they also have limited resources. They're part of this joint strike force that has been set up, that, as you mentioned, Commissioner Horton has been supportive of. We've built bipartisan support. There's nobody in the legislature who is benefiting from the underground economy, and our communities don't benefit, because this is where in the construction trade somebody comes and remodels somebody's home. They're not licensed. They do a shoddy job or they don't complete the work. The consumer complains, and there's no recourse because the person's not a licensed contractor. They're fly-by-night. They disappear. There's no way to track them down. You don't get the work completed. You've maybe paid for the full job. So this is at its core consumer protection, in any family who is considering a remodel of a home or of a business. You must make sure that that contractor is licensed. You can do so online. California State Licensing Board maintains that information. Some of these convicted felons who have been arrested, they'll manufacture a bogus license.
But here's what I'm envisioning. We've all gone to the local, I don't want to say a brand name, but a big box appliance store, let's say, and we see these well-intentioned young men who are offering their services for small dollars. It's usually not a very large job, and people may hire them. We're not talking to build a home.
Right. Well, the difference there, so that would be a day laborer.
Right.
And a local family or consumer may hire somebody to help clean up their yard waste or remove some rubble. The problem goes when you have a contractor come with their pickup truck and load the back of that pickup truck with these day laborers to do a roofing job, when that pickup truck driver is not licensed and they run out of supplies or somebody falls off the roof and is injured, your homeowner policy may become liable for that because you're working with somebody who's not licensed.
So what should we do?
Insured.
What should just mom and pop do?
Mom and pop should always work through a licensed contractor and check online to see if that contractor is licensed. And if there's any question, call the state licensing board directly, and they can check and make sure this person is current in their license and is bonded and protected by insurance. It's basic consumer protection.
Okay, his name is Bill Monning, member of the California State Senate. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Chris Ungar. He is on the school board of San Luis Coastal. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition. Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and he is back. He is Chris Ungar. He is a trustee with the San Luis Coastal Unified School District. And so I want to speak with you about standardized testing.
Sure.
We know under No Child Left Behind, standardized testing was kind of the holy grail. The federal government was very much looking at the results of standardized tests. California became a part of that mantra. And we look at the almighty API score, and it kind of defines how a school is doing. Boy, what a difference a year makes. I mean, all of this is kind of vanishing before our very eyes.
Yeah, it's going to be transformed. I don't think it's going to vanish. The question is, what's it going to look like in a year or so?
Right.
And I don't think we have any answers for that. Now, right now, the API is the way that California rates schools.
Right.
So there are a couple of scores. It really looks at the school's results on the California Standards Test, which is those bubble-in tests that we've the bubble-in tests that we've talked about.
Right.
Schools are rated by how well their individual students do.
Right.
And then there's also a look at how schools do with like schools.
Right.
So everybody, the state set the bar at 800.
Right. That's kind of the minimum to be considered a successful school.
Exactly. And so your school could be an 800, but when you look at the demographics, your school could be an 800, but on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10.
Right.
Because it would have been expected that given your demographics, you would have done a lot better.
Right. Here's the challenge, though.
Right.
As a result of Common Core, and as a result of the efforts of Superintendent Tom Torlakson, we are seeing virtually no standardized tests in the spring. They're gone.
It is so different. And that goes back to this switch to the Smarter Balanced Assessment, which is taking the place of the Common Core.
Right.
And just a reminder to people, the Common Core isn't a set of curricula, it's standards.
Right.
And so going on with that is this Smarter Balanced Assessment, which is a computerized test.
Right, that's adaptive.
That's adaptive,
right.
Which means that if you do well on an answer, you get a harder question next time. If you don't, you get an easier question.
But here's the frustration I'm hearing out on the street. Okay, Common Core's coming, that's fine. We like the fact that the testing is not so bubbleized and it's adaptive, but for 1 year there's no testing, so we'll have no idea what's happened over this year. Then in year 2, Common Core is adopted in toto, and that's going to be a weird year because it's going to be a new type of test. And so it's almost like this 2 to 3 year Netherland where we really don't know what's going on.
You know, and you are exactly right. And that's the discussion that's going on right now. First of all, and the state is moving forward on this, there will not be a California Standards Test as we know it in the spring.
Right.
So this Smarter Balanced Test, which is not only given in California, but in other states in the United States, there are really 2 tests that people agreed on. Most states are opting into these. So just kind of a digression.
Please.
So what the Smarter Balance allows us to do is not only look at kids in California, but it's going to allow for comparisons of other students in the United States on their achievement, which is, I think that's a great thing, because right now there's a scatter shot.
Right. There's no doubt that a student in Mississippi is being tested differently than a student in Maine, and so the goal is to look toward more uniform standards. When we come back, though, Chris, I want to speak more about this because it really is causing a lot of confusion and fear and trepidation about where we go from here. For our viewers on HLN, I want to thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back on Charter California Edition. So, Mr. Ungar, it is true that parents are concerned. They're not sure what to make of this elimination of the standardized tests. On the one hand, they think it's a great thing. On the other, they're concerned because how are we going to know how my child's doing? And then there's a new type of standardized test. And so, I get it. I think they get it that we're engaged in what I would call a revolution. But what they don't know is the revolution's going on right now. And so how does this impact my child right now? I mean, my child's the guinea pig.
Yes. I wouldn't exactly use the word guinea pig, but you're absolutely right. There's a lot of angst going on out there. And so the state is in discussions on what are we going to do about being able to hold schools accountable, because this is really about accountability and student achievement. So the first thing is, you're right. there will be no California standards test this year. It will be replaced with the Smarter Balanced Assessment,
Right.
but as a trial. And some students in California will take the math section of it. Some students will take the English language
In the
arts
spring.
in the spring.
Okay.
Those results, because it's still considered a trial, won't be published, and there won't be individual results, which has people concerned, because we know that it's important to be able to track kids' achievement.
Yeah, it really is. It's a 1 year. It's as if the year didn't happen.
It is going to be interesting to
Right.
see how it ultimately shakes out.
And I feel like I've asked this question, and I'm
Yeah.
not clear if there's
Okay.
an answer on it, but the federal government often ties funding to standardized test scores.
Yes.
And so if we don't have them, what happens with that funding?
Well, and Arnie Duncan, the Secretary of Education, stated, a month or so ago,
Right.
that he would not allow
Right.
California to opt out of the
Right.
standardized testing. And so there's a
But he
disagreement.
pulled
between,
back a little bit, arguably, and so we'll see what happens on that
Yes.
front. But still, I mean, it's a bold step. It's
It
a
is
very bold step.
It is a real bold step.
And I asked you this question last month, and
Sure.
I'm not sure if we've come to
Okay.
resolution. It's not your responsibility to
Sure.
answer my questions, but I
Okay.
ask many educators about this. We have these adaptive tests that
Yeah.
are going to be adopted, and I don't hear anything from the SAT, anything
Nope.
from the ACT about
Nothing
they
yet.
deciding to create adaptive testing, and their
Nope.
testing is very much like the No Child Left Behind world, and
Yeah.
that is maddening.
It seems unfair, doesn't it?
Right.
And I can't give you an answer to that. One hopes that gets addressed, because
But
that,
who's going to address it? That's what I'm worrying. Who addresses it? People keep saying, and again, I'm not calling you
Yeah,
out, but people
that's
keep
fine.
saying, I know it needs to be addressed, but who, when, where, how?
Well, you know what?
Whose responsibility is it?
I'll tell you what. Next time I come back, I will do some research on
Right.
it, and I'll find out who would be responsible.
Right, who
for
would
that.
be responsible? Talk about it. I mean, as we speak, you're an active member of the California School
Correct.
Boards Association, likely to be in its leadership in the next few months. I mean, is it a school board's place? Is it
Yeah.
Superintendent Torlickson's place? Is it the governor's place? Someone needs to talk about this. This is serious.
Well, and I'll do some research on that,
Uh-huh.
and I'll
Right.
come back and we can talk about that, and hopefully I'll have some better answers for you. But I think your point is exactly why we're not doing the CSTs, and that's because the Common Core standards and the new curricula does not
Right.
align with the old CSTs.
But the
and you know-
CSTs align with the SAT right now,
the
unless they
CSTs
change
do.
it.
And so what we're going to see, part of the reason that the tests were eliminated for this year was we know that that schools are moving toward these Common Core Core standards and the curriculum that goes with it. We're not teaching that, which really validates the point. Do we teach to the test? Well, what you test, you teach, right? We know that test scores are going to go down. And it's not for lack of trying, it's because of this shift. Well, the hope is that with the new curriculum and the new tests, we'll be able to see more student achievement.
Why is it presumed that test scores will go down?
Because right now, and that's why the test was eliminated, because right now schools are moving away from what I would call really more of the rote learning that goes on with the current California standards test, and moving toward this deeper thinking college career readiness that the Common Core is calling for, and that should be reflected in the Smarter Balanced Assessments.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. It really is a very important issue, especially for parents whose children are still in the K-12 system. When we come back, we'll be speaking with one of Chris Ungar's colleagues. His name is Mark Buchman. We'll get his sense on the adoption of Common Core, the change of standardized testing. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Mark Buchman, he is a trustee with the San Luis Coastal Unified School District. And so I must speak with you about Common Core. It's amazing how quickly Common Core is approaching, and California is taking a very aggressive approach in
Yes.
the adoption of Common Core. What does that mean for parents of students in the K-12 system?
I think parents are going to be very, very excited about Common Core. Common Core is going to change the look of public education. They're going to see more homework at home, more difficult homework, and the testing is going to be more difficult.
But let me ask you about the homework, because a lot of public school parents say the homework is a lot of make work. Is this going to change?
Yeah, this changes under Common Core, because what we've done is, rather than the drill and kill that we did under No Child Left Behind, and the teacher standing up in front of the classroom as the person with all the knowledge, and they still have all that knowledge.
Right.
This is a new approach to education, so the student is interactive and highly involved in taking part in their education.
And I think it's exciting. I think it's hard to deny that it's exciting, the change, the revolution we're about to see before us. What I'm wondering though is, let's take a kid, 7th, 8th grade. So they're kind of in the middle of their education. They've been educated under No Child Left Behind. They're about to enter Common Core. I just wonder if they can adjust to the sea change that's about, I mean, they're about to enter a tsunami. And it's not as if they're in 2nd grade where they can easily adjust, or 11th grade and they're already out. What do you do with these kids?
You know, this often happens in public education, where we come up with a reform, and it's a great reform, and kids are halfway through the system.
Exactly.
The thing about Common Core is it appeals to children because it's so exciting, because what they're doing is a lot of hands-on stuff, a lot of linking to their own future, so to career pathways, to what they're going to be doing. It's a college readiness, career readiness program, so they'll be excited.
I want to talk about college. I've asked a few people this question who are in education. It's one, I haven't found the answer, and you may not have it, but I'm hoping you can advocate for it. And it's the question of college standardized tests. There's the SAT and the ACT.
Right.
They're not adopting Common Core. Those tests are very much No Child Left Behind like. And so my concern is for these kids who are now going to be taught under Common Core. They're going to have to do this absolute, divert quickly back into the No Child Left Behind world, so they can be ready for this very No Child Left Behind type test.
And I don't disagree with you. There is discussion now at the folks that put together SAT and ACT to make the changes, just the way there's going to be a continuum of Common Core through kindergarten through high school, and we're looking for that to continue, those skills development.
But this has to happen quickly. I mean, these kids are going to take their tests soon. I mean, it's okay for the 10th and 11th graders. I mean, they've lived under No Child Left Behind, but all of a sudden you got a 7th and 8th grader and those key years, and they're learning one way, and the SAT and the SAT is another.
And here's the key. The exciting thing about Common Core is it's problem solving.
Right.
Okay, it's critical thinking, and it's communication. So all of those three things will help them all their lives and help them make this transition. So when they get to the test, the common knowledge is still there.
You're confident.
I'm confident.
But you still believe it's important that the test change somewhat?
Oh, I think we need to.
Because think about
because
Common
the
Core.
21st century is different.
Right. Think about Common Core testing. One of the most exciting, what people say, elements is when there are standardized tests, they're adaptive. And so if you get a question right, you answer question 2A. If you get it wrong, you answer question 2B. I mean, that says a lot.
Right. And in Common Core, what we're going to see in the tests is, number one, they're going to be taking the tests on computers for the first time, starting in the 3rd grade. Number two, is as they go through the testing, it will change.
So let's talk more about that when we come back. For our viewers on
sure.
HLN, thanks for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. And now that we're back, I want to talk to you more about this question of the testing, because like you said, we are dramatically changing the way we test. It's adaptive. But what's troubling to some is we're changing the test so quickly. We're changing it this spring. And so this spring, I mean, query, are we even going to have a test? Is the test reportable? What can you tell us about that?
The governor signed AB 484.
Yeah, I think it's 44.
AB 44. So there will be no testing this year.
Zero.
And so this
no standardized tests.
No standardized tests. This is the year where we'll have transition. And in my mind, that's a really good thing.
But here's my question, if I may.
Sure,
I know I keep cutting you off, but there's so many things to ask.
I'm so excited about this.
Exactly. The first thing is, some school districts, like your sister district, CMR,
yes.
has teacher evaluations with which standardized tests are a part,
Yes.
and some federal funding is based upon test scores.
It was under No Child Left Behind. It's not necessarily under Common Core, and this is why. Because Common Core sets the standards, but within our local districts, we get to set how it's taught and how the children reach that. And so here in San Luis Coastal and in many school districts, they're actually creating their own tests.
So what happens to the Holy Grail, the API?
The API will change and adapt, as you love that word, adaptive.
Right.
Will adapt to the Common Core. That's why one of the reasons why I really like this gap, because we'll have these scores that come up to this year, and then we'll have scores after a year, because there will be a change.
So are we ready for Common Core?
I think a tremendous number of school districts are ready for Common Core. Some have it implemented already, some are in the transitional stage.
What about districts, for example, on the Central Coast?
I'm very confident of what's happening on the Central Coast. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of staff
All
development.
Monterey, San Luis, Santa Barbara.
Monterey is actually Salinas, and I can't remember,
Okay, 'cause
Alisal.
You're an active member of the State PTA Association, so
Right,
you have your
and also the California School Board
right. So
Association.
you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. So what's your sense?
My sense is Monterey is actually probably very comfortable
Right.
and very well ahead of the curve.
Uh-huh.
They are already teaching to Common Core.
Wow. What about in San Luis?
San Luis, we're about 2 years into the transition program, which is
Okay.
really good. We'll be ready when it comes. Our staff has been working, I'll say diligently, but extremely
Right.
hard, putting in a lot of hours, a lot of extra hours to get ready to teach the Common Core.
Now, the governor, as part of the budget passed in June, allocated, and the legislature allocated, governor signed, $1.25 billion for Common Core training, testing,
Yep.
et cetera.
He did.
Is that enough?
No.
No.
It's estimated that in order to do this properly, we would have needed $3 billion.
Okay.
That's to bring the teachers along, to bring the technology up to speed, and to get ready with the testing. So what we've ended up with is somewhere between $169 to $179, $180 per kid. So some districts end up having to spend that on technology, just to get enough computers, just to get their kids up to speed.
And we know teachers need a lot of training in technology. Maybe the students can be their teachers, but be that as it may.
It's interesting as you mention that,
Right.
because that's exactly what the
What about
teachers are
child
saying.
labor laws? But be that as it may. Okay, so, but we don't have a choice. So what do we do? I mean, we have $1.25 billion, we
Right.
need 3, whatever. What do we do?
I think the districts will wisely spend their money, and one of the nice things about Common Core, it's not this federally mandated No Child Left Behind program. It's so much less of
But
an
it's
intrusion.
interesting you say that, because there are some folks that would say
Yes.
that this is, big federal government imposing their will on the people,
Right.
and it's going to be uniform standards from Mississippi to Monterey.
Right, and that's true. The standards will be the same, which balances the field, the playing field across the country. So we will know that all the children are being taught to the same standards. However, how they get to those standards and what happens in the school districts and in the classrooms is up to the local districts,
And it's
where
right.
it's a much less intrusion than No Child Left Behind.
And it's interesting you say that, because simultaneous with the adoption of Common Core, the local control funding formula was adopted
Yes.
in California, which does a lot of things, but one thing it does in connection with this conversation is it all but eliminates about 40 categoricals, giving more discretion to local school districts.
Yes.
So simultaneously you have Common Core and more discretion, and so you must be having a lot of fun.
The school board's looking forward to it.
And so what are we going to see in San Luis Coastal as an example?
I think we're going to see programs like the STEAM program.
Right. We taught science, technology, education, art.
arts, and math.
Right.
Art's very important.
Right.
We're going to see a good use of technology.
Okay.
There are other schools in our district that are begging for the kind of
I bet
technology
they are.
in our
His
pilot
name is
program.
Mark Buchman. He is a trustee with San Luis Coastal. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for watching Charter California Edition.